presented by American Airlines. From Commerce City, Colorado, it's the United States men's national team against Australia with just 7 games remaining for the US before the World Cup kicks off. Mauricio Pochettino looks for his side to build on what was a strong performance in Friday's 1-1 draw against Ecuador as they face a Socceroos team here that has already qualified for next summer's big stage and has won 7 games in a row. Australia get us underway here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, fresh off a 1-0 win north of the border against Canada in Montreal on Friday night. They are unbeaten in 12 matches, and Kyle, they will provide a very different test to the one which the US had and passed really against Ecuador in Austin on Friday night.
Yeah, they're going to play a team that will most likely sit back in a lower block, a mid block, and they're presenting a higher press now. They'll start to give up a little more field, but right out of the gate we saw what Sands wants to bring. It gets in a crunching tackle right away, and Tessmann and Morris that were strong last game swapped out for double pivot this game.
There are 6 changes made by Mauricio Pochettino from the 1-1 draw against Ecuador. In comes McKenzie at the back, Freeman, Sands, Roldan, Pulisic and Wright in place of Ream, Arfston, Tessmann, Morris, Balogun and Tillman. 10th straight start for Matt Freese in goal tonight for the United States, the longest active run of any player. Here's McKennie out wide to the right side for Freeman. Freeman, the Orlando man, coming into the lineup. Robinson starts on the right of that back three. The first time that we've seen Miles Robinson, Chris Richards and Mark McKenzie play alongside each other together in the starting lineup for the United States.
This is the defensive posture the U.S. is going to see a lot of this game. It's going to be very difficult to break them down. Got to be patient. This is an opportunity, too, where you've got 3 center backs that can take chances and push them forward, get your wing backs high forward. It'll be interesting to see how they break through.
Sands in a challenge there with Aidan O'Neill, who plays at MLS with New York City FC, the 27-year-old midfielder earning his win against Canada for Australia, but they had 40% possession. Paul Izzo that night, the keeper, made 8 saves, and Australia scored with their only shot on target of the night. Freeman down the right side. Sands in there with a challenge, and then Roldan wide for McKenzie, and the former Philadelphia man carrying it over halfway. And that looked like a handball. Jacob Italiano made his debut on Friday and gets the 2nd start tonight. Mauricio Pochettino full of praise for the way that the crowd got behind the team against Ecuador in Austin on Friday night. It's his 2nd time in this building. He was here with Spurs for the MLS All-Star game in 2015. Richards forward towards Roldan, who turned under pressure from D'Agostino.
Look at Weston McKennie and Christian Pulisic.
Freeman is chasing forward up against Jordan Boss, and Boss, the left-sided defender from Feyenoord, will get it up towards halfway. Richards back forward, drops for Sands.
It's going to be really enjoyable to watch those 2 players, McKennie and Pulisic, play so central and have that free role. We've seen it with McKennie a lot, but Pulisic under Pochettino mostly as is with his club in wide positions. It's going to be lovely to watch those 2 interchange.
Richards across the back for Robinson. First start for McKenzie on the left side of the defense since the June loss against Switzerland 4-0 in Nashville, and as soon as he's on the ball, Mauricio Pochettino is right up to the edge of the technical area, urging him forward as Roldan has it now on halfway. McKenzie down the left towards Ware. Tim Ware playing primarily on the left in 5 of Marseille's 9 games this season. Pulisic trying to skip that challenge. We've seen so many times under Mauricio Pochettino the fluidity to the formation, and that will be absolutely the same again tonight with the way that he has set this team up. Tony Popovic is the head coach of Australia, took over after Graham Arnold departed following a tricky start to World Cup qualifying. Popovic hasn't lost since taking charge in September of 2024. He's played 11, won 8 and drawn 3. 3-time A-League Coach of the Year. Richards at the back. And now here's James Sands.
And Sands comfortable as a center back. We've seen that in his time with the U.S. Just loves to join that back line, really comfortable moving the ball out of the back. It also allows the fullbacks to start a lot higher forward, having that protection.
James Sands with his first cap since the Gold Cup semi-final against Panama in 2023. The flag is up for offside here. Plays in a central midfield role tonight, as has been the case in all 6 of his Bundesliga appearances this season. James Sands playing for St. Pauli. His teammate Connor Metcalf is in the Australian midfield tonight as well. Out to the right side it comes here for Garrier. Metcalf couldn't quite get on the end of it. Weah, nice little flick down the left, but Garrier can clear it away. This is Chakati, who wore the captain's armband on Friday night in the absence of Matt Ryan. Ryan back in goal, having not played in the last 3 for Australia. A little bit scrappy right now, but Socceroos come away with the ball. Italiano down the right side, plays in the Austrian Bundesliga with Grazer.
That's something we saw last game that was so good and consistent, and it was led by Balogun. Is a line of confrontation higher up with players already moving to those secondary and third options. The US has been showing that same demonstration of an aggressive nature that kind of left the team for a while. They were languid, they were pressing consistently, and when they did, it wasn't together as a unit. It's already showing that, like last game, they've got that and those triggers, and they're clicking with putting that pressure on up top.
Back with Matt Freese, who drills that towards halfway. All the way to Matt Ryan at the opposite end. Centurion Matt Ryan. He reached the 100 cap mark for Australia back in June, the final World Cup qualifier. Currently in La Liga with Levante, played with Brighton in the Premier League. Sands gets a touch to it there, and Chakati, Parma man, will look to clear it away down the right side, up towards D'Agostino on halfway, but Richards is there to defend. In the battle between McKenzie and Metcalf, and the referee gives this the way of Australia. Luke Wildman, Kyle Martino in the booth, and Melissa Ortiz pitch side.
This week in camp, head coach Mauricio Pochettino wrote on a board in the team's meeting room, quote, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." He even later posted it on his Instagram. It was actually inspired by Chick-fil-A chairman Dan Cathy, who he sat down with in April. And he said, no matter how brilliant your business strategy is, if your team culture isn't aligned or if it's toxic, your strategy will fail. Culture is the collective behaviors, attitudes, beliefs, and values that drive a team, and we all know that Mauricio Pochettino is all about that. I got to speak to him yesterday, and he said with all the testing that they're doing, the formations, the changes, he's really emphasized the culture and the belief in every one of these players.
Well, I think we've seen it. What that is the lingering frustration we all had, former players, fans, of not seeing a team that was consistently competitive, that had a spirit that was tough to play against. And I think that culture statement of his, really that's how it was manifesting in front of us, is the lack of just consistent competitive performance that we saw last game.
The crossfield ball picks out Weah. Tim Weah with support from Christian Pulisic down the left side. Wright, McKennie and Freeman all in the box. Sands will reset and come back towards Richards. And the Crystal Palace man with the ball back across towards Mark McKenzie. Richards, a lovely ball through towards Haji Wright, and Garrier steps to it, looking for D'Agostino. Richards winning in the air, comes back for Pulisic. Couldn't quite feed that forward to Haji Wright, and then Metcalf will turn in the midfield here for Australia.
There's those little details, that little moment. Haji Wright, the right entry pass, it breaks between the lines. Pulisic spins off, he's right there. He's got to be clean. Make sure that he's good and consistent with that hold-up play and that one-touch pass. That's what Balogun did so wonderfully. He was irresistible last game and never gave a ball away like that.
There's no Malik Tillman in the squad tonight. He's not available, and a few other players maybe just being rested by Mauricio Pochettino in terms of making sure that there are no fitness concerns or injury issues. An opportunity to maybe see a few other players in action here tonight. Haji Wright getting that call straight down the middle. Balogun is though amongst the substitutes. Haji Wright saying yesterday when we chatted with him and asked what's one of the biggest differences now, and you're in such good goal scoring form at club level, he said, I feel as if I'm finally fit, and that breeds that consistency. Here they come forward down the right side. It's Freeman pushing forward, the right back, the furthest player forward down that right side there as it comes back in for Christian Pulisic. Pulisic sliding it through towards Haji Wright, who turns. There was some contact, but not enough for a penalty. Alex Freeman playing in a very advanced role. He said that during the Gold Cup he thought that he stayed a little too far back in the opening games, and as he got more confident and as he found his place more in the team and that tournament went on, he started to get a little bit further forward and feel that freedom a little bit more.
Yeah, that was a wonderful ball from Weston McKennie. But that's something all game long. I think we saw Weston in advanced positions because Tessman and Morris were doing such a great job playing between the lines and bringing the game forward. And obviously Ecuador was opened up, but when Weston withdraws like that, he's got excellent long-range passing ability. That's the good part about Christian Pulisic playing as that other inverted winger, false nine, whatever you want to call it, in that advanced position. And then Weston could join late as he done so well.
McKennie closing down here. Forward towards D'Agostino. Richards gets a touch to it. Back it comes to Cameron Burgess, who plays in the Championship in England with Swansea City after a long, successful spell with Ipswich Town. Now it's played through down the right side. Italiano chasing, and the flag is up for offside. Burgess playing at the back was one of the players who went right through from League One to the Championship to the Premier League with Ipswich Town on that incredible ride. Left after they got relegated last season.
You can see it just early on that run. A little bit fortunate because Way is flat-footed. He's not spinning quickly, and there really isn't any center back cover that timing of that pass and that run is a little better.
McKenzie back towards Chris Richards. Now McKenzie again with the ball down the left touchline. Mark McKenzie now with Toulouse in France, played every minute of the first 7 league games. He'll head back to take on Metz on Sunday, and then the week after he's up against Balogun and Monaco. Italiano just moved backwards right in front of Tony Popovic on the edge of the technical area. Played for Crystal Palace during his playing days. Tony Popovic, who will become the first Australian to play and manage at a World Cup. Had 58 caps, the Australian boss, between 95 and 2006. One appearance at the 2006 World Cup, but left the game against Brazil with an injury. I was reading one article in an Australian newspaper yesterday about the fact that the widely held belief right now is that this Australian men's national team is the most in form of any of the Australian national teams. And when you consider how well they've done in rugby union, rugby league, in cricket, the fact that Tony Popovic and his Socceroos heading into a World Cup are widely held right now as the gold standard in terms of Australian sporting success is not a bad place to be in.
Not up on my rugby right now, I really couldn't tell you.
I'm not going well for the cricket team at the moment, but here Australia are on a good run, and 0-0 into the 15th minute as it's chased by McKennie and Freeman forward down that right side. But this is Haji Wright. Gets it back from Roldan. Richards across the back. He'll head back at the weekend to take on Bournemouth, then Arsenal after that in the Premier League the next couple. Mauricio Pochettino wants a foul given here. Christian Pulisic down, and Pochettino having a conversation with the fourth official and trying to get into the ear of the referee, who is near the bench.
A crunching tackle. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. And just the unlucky part is Christian's foot just gets trapped underneath. And the follow through happens, but I mean, foot right on the ground. It was where the ball was placed that Christian dangled that foot. It was a dangerous ball that was played with the advantage. And the defenders all along. There, just absolutely crushes him.
He plays in Japan with Albirex Niigata, over 200 appearances in a couple of spells with Melbourne Victory. D'Agostino and Boyle looking to close down at the back. Robinson out to the right. Now D'Agostino forward, Boyle looking to chase, but the header back towards Matt Freese.
Yeah, I think for Weah too today, being over on this side, we've seen him pull onto his left foot, get opportunities off on the far side. It's not as if he can't do it, but he's got to make sure that, I think that's the first 3 or 4 touches have been onto his right foot internally. He's got to make sure that that threat of going onto his left foot wide is there to keep the defenders honest.
Weah has a bit of space to carry forward. Italiano getting back to close down, but this is Pulisic. Now Mackenzie. There'll be many times tonight where Australia will have everyone behind the ball and just look for the US to try and find a way to break them down. And it'll be interesting to see if they can do that. This is Freeman in towards McKennie, but broken down once again. The game against Canada was Australia's 4th clean sheet in their last 6 matches. Robinson chasing to get there, does really well against Martin Boyle, the 32-year-old. 10 goals for him in 37 caps prior to tonight, Boyle, but he wasn't going to get there before Robinson.
I mean, he definitely had a head start, that's for sure. I mean, that incredible closing speed from Robinson.
Roldan looking to get a touch to that one, but picked up there by Boss, the fine old man. All the way back for Burgess. Boyle. Burgess once again for an Australia side that qualified in June, finishing 2nd behind Japan in the 3rd round of World Cup qualifying. 6 points clear of 3rd place Saudi Arabia. They won 5, lost 1 and tied 4 of their games in that 3rd round. It'll be their 7th World Cup and 6th in a row. Tony Popovic making 5 changes tonight, including in goal with Ryan for Izzo, Guerrier, Boss, D'Agostino and Boyle coming in. Iran Kunda, the teenager who scored the winner on Friday in Montreal, is on the bench as he looks to freshen things up. Brought in towards the box and all the way through. Australia able to take the lead through Boss. First shot of the game. And it's Jordan Boss, the fine old man, with the goal. Just his 2nd of his international career.
I mean, it seemed he lost possession several times. Get a look here. Here's the first ball that gets played. There's a spin on it, but just, I think, several U.S. players just wondering who's going to go and challenge that first ball. Here's a look at it. And look how late the U.S. players are to react to that. No one jumping on it. Obviously, a lucky deflection that falls to him, and a wonderful finish. And here's a look here. Is it right into that far post? Just way too timid. Perfect angle at it. Outside of Freese's hands. A beautiful finish, but Boss was the only one that read that first deflection, and the spin of the ball. It's almost like a spectator syndrome of several U.S. defenders just pausing, waiting for someone to make the play there.
They certainly had the numbers in that situation. But Boss is the goal scorer. Came off the bench in the first game of this window against Canada. It's his first international goal since March. It's Pulisic into the box at the other end. Can the US get straight back on level terms? Pulisic here towards the edge of the area, couldn't quite find McKennie. Look at the way Australia got the numbers back as well there. Out it goes on the far side.
That's a great idea from Pulisic. He was just trying to play it soft enough for Weston McKennie to hit that first time. Could have maybe rolled a little harder, knowing McKennie's got the quality to hit that ball, even if it's put a pace back to him. But great run. I think occasionally that's going to be very important, especially when Australia are in that mid block where they've got a high back line and a low first line of confrontation. When it's so hard to play between them because they're compact, you got to try that ball over the top from time to time.
The US went behind in Austin on Friday. And Valencia's goal midway through the first half. Balogun leveled with 20 minutes to go. And Mauricio Pochettino's side finding themselves trailing once again as the flick comes straight through towards Ryan. It might have been Freeman that got ahead to that one, as they'll play out of the back here with Burgess. Matt Ryan with a long ball downfield. McKenzie heads forward. Italiano will chase, but Mark McKenzie the favourite to get there, and he'll just shepherd that one out for a goal kick.
And you wonder in moments like that when a ball bounces in a dangerous area and there's a slight hesitation from defenders. I mean, knowing he was a defender himself, and some of the defenders he played with, Ayala and some of the players over the years, I mean, the player he was, and then in the modern era, Otamendi, there's almost a rabid nature to the pride of if that ball is anywhere near the box. I mean, going through everyone and anything and almost meeting your own defender at the same time in a 50-50 tackle. That bystander phenomenon of 3 US players pausing, that ball bounces before any of them jump on it. I just wonder for Pochettino, that's frustrating. Here's another look. I mean, just how long does it take to reach a sprint for a few players? And the only one sprinting and following that ball the whole way and just speculating they might be able to get onto it was Boss, the player that found it in the end.
It's funny you mentioned that about Mauricio Pochettino, because he talked yesterday about the differences for defenders from when he was a player and defenders now, and all the different things that they have to do that makes up a defender's job now, rather than defending, playing out of the back and everything else that comes with the modern day defender. This is Pulisic racing forward up against Guerrier. Down the left, Weah making the run as well on the overlap, but Pulisic looking to try and play this one into the middle. Couldn't find McKennie. This is McKenzie. And some of the dark arts as well that may have drifted out of the game or not be allowed these days, that Pochettino and even Brian Dunseth was talking about, that he used to get away with some of the things when he was in his career.
Well, I'll never forget. Wonderful, wonderful defender, a good friend of mine, excellent pundit, Premier League winner and 3 Lions player. Lee Dixon would always say, in my mind was always, what happens if? As a defender, that's the first thing I'm always thinking about. I'm thinking about getting forward. I'm not thinking about curling the ball. And you could say different era, but just a default of what would happen if someone turned that ball over, if it spun back, if it deflected. That anticipation and that decisiveness, it was fundamental to maybe a little bit of extra tackle.
Pulisic can't find a way through. And now Metcalf, a teammate of James Sands in Germany, with that ball across all the way back from Freeman towards Matt Freese. Freese beaten by a 19th minute goal scored by Jordan Boss, 22-year-old who was the Eredivisie Player of the Month for September, first Australian to win that award. Haji Wright chasing forward, couldn't get there. Aidan O'Neill in the midfield. Richards stretching, is able to get the block because that one would have run through towards Boyle.
Yeah, he looked on.
Into the 25th minute.
Really well timed.
Italiano backwards for Guerrier. And they'll go all the way towards Matt Ryan, the goalkeeper. His first start since the World Cup qualifying in June against Saudi Arabia. The third most caps in team history. Matt Ryan tonight, it's number 101. Behind a couple of decent names, Mark Schwarzer and Tim Cahill. 109 caps and 108. Here come Australia racing forward deep into the US half with Ballard's ball for D'Agostino. D'Agostino couldn't find the return to Ballard. Sands breaks it up, Freeman up towards halfway. And Pulisic with a lovely turn here against Guerrier. He couldn't get the ball through to Haji Wright. And the referee thought about playing on, but he'll bring that one back for a free kick. And a yellow card is coming here for Guerrier.
Well, you had to make that foul. Here's a look at it. Pulisic does so well to cushion the ball on his knee and just spins, and he's going to be away here. Just a little clip of the heel. Enough to throw him off balance. It's smart play in the end because that ball is through. And the U.S. are even numbers sprinting at that back line.
Christian Pulisic will need some treatment here. It's his 82nd cap tonight, and that ties Brad Friedel, Eddie Pope and Eddie Lewis for 24th most with the team. Second time he's captained the side under Mauricio Pochettino. The other was the Canadian match, the third place game in the Nations League in March.
He was carrying an ankle knock into this. One of the reasons they didn't start last game. Here's the play right here. There's not a lot of contact. I'm wondering if it's more that first tackle, because I mean, it really looked like he got his foot trapped underneath in that first play, and you wonder if he's just finding a little bit of discomfort. I mean, it's that right leg that did get trapped underneath that they're testing right now.
He came on in the 72nd minute against Ecuador for Weah. Appearances in 4 games in a row now for Christian Pulisic after not playing the previous 8. Got an assist on the Balogun goal against Japan in the September window.
It's definitely, of everyone, someone you don't take a risk with, especially the form he's at club level.
6 goals and 8 appearances across all competitions this year for Christian Pulisic with Milan. 3 goals and 2 assists in his previous 2 games before a 0-0 draw against Juve heading into this international break. And Mauricio Pochettino heading over for a word with Pulisic, who is taking off the captain's armband and will be leaving the game. Hopefully that's safety first.
Yeah. It's the last thing after we know the injuries early on in his career, Chelsea and things he was struggling with. I mean, that's one thing that hasn't been plaguing him. He's just been fit, consistent, incredible performance. I mean, one of the players, if not the player in Italy right now. And not why he wanted to happen, but definitely good that Diego Luna gets more minutes than he expected.
McKennie down the right side with a cross early towards Haji Wright, but it's cleared away at the back by Australia off Cherkati. And I think it's gone out for a US throw on the far side. We'll wait and see who gets the armband.
Pulisic's right below me. I mean, I think he still has the armband with him. I mean, you can see him so frustrated, shaking his head, slamming his hands on his knees. He's such a competitor. Just frustrated that whether it's the tackle or not. I'm sure he was excited to start this one after having a little knock for the first game that kept him from starting.
McKennie inside towards Roldan and Miles Robinson. Luna still being ready to come on. So for the time being, the US a man down. McKenzie wide to the left for Weah. US winning their last 6 in a row in the state of Colorado. They haven't lost in Colorado since 1992, a 1-0 defeat against Scotland at Mile High Stadium in Denver. And Haji Wright turns really well. He's got Weah in space down the left side. Freeman is bursting forward to the edge of the box. Weah goes for goal. First shot of the game for the United States out on the